Alrighty then. This recording is going to be about JUnit testing. Earlier, we created a maven repository, and we're going to go back to that thing one. So if you have to, go back and look at the YouTube video on how to create a maven project. What the heck, we'll just do it right now. We'll do a maven project. I'm going to do this fast because we've already done it. We'll do a quick start. Choose release. Com.example. We'll call this thing 3. Okay. And remember to click this in the bottom right, this on this pop-up, enable auto imports. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, oh, what did I just do right there? Give me a second. Oh, come back to that later. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to create a class that has a method and test it. So I'm going to, in the source, in the main, in the Java, I'm going to create a class in this com.example package, and I'm going to call it new Java class, and I'm going to say it is a widget. And I'm going to give the widget a method. Well, let's do this test-driven development. Let's do this in test-driven development. So in IntelliJ, I can click on, see this public class in the name widget right there? I clicked on it, and I can hold down on a Mac, I can hold down the control key and hit enter. Now on Windows, you're going to hold down, maybe it's the control key and hit enter, maybe it's the alt key and hit enter or whatever, but you can get this pop-up and say create a test for this class. So I'm going to click on this test ... and it's going to be a JUnit 4 test, and it's going to be called widget test, and it's going to be in that package. And let's check this box to create a before. Okay, and we're going to generate it. Boom. So now we have a widget test. So if we expand test Java, example, here's a widget test. Right there's the class that got generated. Here it is. Now you can do this on your own. You can go over there and do. Let me delete this, and I'll create it without the generation. So I'll delete this, and I'm going to just create it the old way. I'm going to do new Java class widget test, and I'm going to sit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be testing the widget class. So I'm going to do widget, and at before, now you don't have to call it before. I call it before, but you don't have to. You can call it anything you want. It's this annotation, this at before annotation, that's important. I'm going to new up the widget class. Widget equals new widget. Okay, so before the tests run, any test we put in here, before any test runs, this before will happen and we'll get a new widget. Now I'm going to put a test in here. At test, and I'm going to call it public, and I'm going to call it test. What is it that widget was doing? Oh, we haven't done anything here. I'm going to call it test get version. And I'm going to say widget. I'm going to string version equals widget.get version. And that doesn't compile. That doesn't work, does it? No, because we haven't read. This is test-driven development. I'm writing the test first, and now I'm going to go implement. If I try to run this test, it won't compile. You see that it's red. Let's go ahead and run it, and it will say, "Hey, I can't run. I can't compile." All right. Hey, all right. Widget test. It's bad. Oh, my signature is bad here. Okay. Now that's happy. It's happy with the signature. Now it's going to, if we try to run it again, and it's saying, hey, there is no method get version. So my test-driven development, then I go into widget and I create that class, public string get version. And right now I'm just going to return null. All right, let's go back and look at the test. And this will now run. It doesn't do anything, but it runs, right? It runs. Yep, it said the test passed, but the test is kind of lame at the moment. So let's beef up this class. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to assert that the version is 1.0. So I'm going to assert, I'll tell you what this is in a moment, assert equals, and I'm going to put a little something in here, a little message. The version should be 1.0. Getting ahead of myself, by the way. I'm going to save this for later. First, I'm going to assert that it's not null. Assert not null. Put a thing right here. Version should not be null. And I'm going to put in the version reference. Okay. So on widget, I'm calling the get version method. The value is going into this variable version here. And I'm going to assert, off of the assert class, I'm going to call assert not null. I'm going to put a little string in here that'll get printed out if there's a problem. And I'm going to assert on this version variable. Now you notice that when I did this assert, it added an import here, jog JUnit assert. Let's talk about these imports. The before import came with this before annotation. The test import came from this test annotation. The assert import came from this assert class here. All right, so we're using the JUnit classes, and we're going to assert not null. Let's run this. It runs it. Oh, look, there's a problem right there, and they printed out my string. Version should not be null. All right, so in test-driven development, what we're going to do is we're going to go make the test pass. So instead of returning null, we'll return the empty string. Still a bogus, we're still not quite there, but it's a start. So let's run this. And the test passed, but still the test isn't beefy enough. So let's go to the test now. We're going to do this other assert here. We're going to assert the instruction, the version should be 1.0. 1.0 version. Okay, so what this did was the first parameter to this assert equals is a string that prints out if this test fails. The second is what is expected. I expect 1.0 to be returned. The third thing is my actual value that I got up here on line 20 or line 18 when I called the method. We'll run this. And look at that. Failure. The version string should be 1.0. There was a comparison failure. And look, here's what's expected, 1.0, and the actual is the empty string. So let's go fix this test. 1.0. Actually, let's get a little fancier. Let's do this in a private static final string version equals 1.0, and we'll return version. Okay, and I don't think we've talked about static yet, so don't worry about it. Just know that this is a string that cannot change, and we're going to return it here. So let's run the test. And the test passes. So now we have a test, and that was test-driven development. We wrote our test, it failed, we added code to what we're testing to make it pass, rinse, lather, repeat, all right, until we finally have the final version, or the final test that tests everything we need to test. The assert class has a whole bunch of methods you can call on it. Let's go look at those real quick. Here we go, assert. Look at all these asserts you have. I'll make it a little bigger. Assert array equals, assert equals, assert equals, assert false. You can say that a value should be false. Assert not null. We saw that, right? We saw that in our code. Widget test, right there. Assert not null. We called that method. That method is right here. Assert not null. And we chose, see how there's two of them? We chose the second one. The second one has a string message that gets printed out if the test fails, and then the object. Actually, yes, that's what we did. Let's look at this assert equals. Assert equals, here we go. This is the one we did. Assert equals, right here. Object owner, string message. Oh, looks like we're using the deprecator. No. Anyhow, it's one of these. Assert equals, it's this one. Oh well, it's in here somewhere. Assert equals, here it is. Woohoo, finally found it. Assert equals. Let's go look at this assert equals. Let's click on it. Assert equals message that gets printed out. There's an arrow, the expected value, and the actual value. Asserts that two objects are equal. If they are not, throws an error. Okay, so there are a lot more methods in here. There is assert null, assert not null, assert true, fail. Fail is a nice one. Fail, you'll fail a test. It'll make the test fail. Anyhow, we'll get more into this, but just get the drift here that we have in our test Java, we have written a test. Here's the test. And what we did was we asserted that things happened for the test. Okay, enough of that for now. We'll get you started.